It's not just the company, it's the look.
You look at the old mantra, the customer is always right.
You shifted back and called it a renaissance, back to solopreneurs, small business, people who need this tool. What was it that motivated this pivot?
You need to have some kind of place where people who are like-minded, who are all using your service or are interested in the same topic, can come together and network together.
Customer connection is not something that on the other end necessarily there's a massive metric attached to it. So you're not going to stop your customer interviews if, say, for example, they don't all get 1,000 views.
I'm definitely a better Bridget than I was 10 years ago, definitely. I think that just comes with maturity anyway.
Hello, this is In the Groove, where we dive into bold conversations with bright minds in mobile, marketing, and AI, the types of conversations that really resonate. And today we have that in spades because I have a guest who is working in the industry, building up to a rebrand. We'll get to that later on, but it resonates with her audiences and it resonates with me. That's why I have her here. So I'm excited to have Bridget Harris, CEO, co-founder of YouCanBookMe. And YouCanBookMe is a business scheduling tool, but it's more than that because she's also bootstrapped her way up from a fresh idea to a global platform. And full disclosure, I use it too, nearly a decade of it. So when I saw the rebrand, when I saw everything going on in the company and I see what Bridget is doing, well, I just have to ask you on to the show, Bridget. So I'm so glad that you're joining me.
Thank you very much, Peggy Anne. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk about bootstrapping. We're going to talk about the rebrand. But I said about resonating. It resonates with me, what you've built. It's really personal. It's custom. But you resonate in a different way outside of the boardroom as well because you go on stage with a fiddle. So I'm intrigued. What's the story here?
I think a lot of people are musicians on the side. Yeah, Steve Martin is a fantastic banjo player. Not many people know that, but there's a lot of people who I pursue music outside of my work because it's such a great thing to switch off from work. You can learn a new tune, you can play with different people, you can perform. And I'm actually playing tonight. Some people are coming over for a practice. So I play Scottish and Irish folk music on my fiddle. Have done for many years. My family is Scottish and of Irish background, so I grew up with a lot of folk music around me, and I've just invested in learning lots of tunes and playing in the pubs, and I love it.
I love it too. It's a way to connect. It really is, and it's got such spirit. So I think it's fitting, Bridget, absolutely, because you're connecting with your customers in different ways. But you actually, what I think is really cool is it's not just the company, it's the look. You're sporting such a new look at the company as well. So a rebrand, first of all, congratulations, because that's not easy. We've seen rebrands go south, but yours is looking grand. What sparked the change?
So thank you for noticing it, because that's been a 10-year change. The last time we did anything was in 2013, when we brought out, or 2014, we brought out a new logo and a kind of look and feel. And then since then, we've only ever really incrementally changed our colors on our website and our logo. So this was a definite departure. This was new logo, new colors, new way of talking about our product. And it was sparked from, you said you've been using YouCanBookMe for nearly a decade. I think that over the last 2 years, we did a bit of soul searching about our business, and everybody talks about their ICPs, their ideal customer profile, and get quite jargony. But at the end of the day, as a business, you're looking for customers who are most successful using your tool, who are advocates for your tool, who are happy to continue to use it, happy to promote it and recommend you to other people, and who are using the tool for what it does. And I think that for us, for a few years, we got a bit lost in the weeds a bit on kind of a lot of internal engineering around scheduling, sort of large scale scheduling. There's lots of things you can do with scheduling, and we got a bit lost in the weeds from an engineering perspective to try to build a more complex product. And we brought it back a few years ago and said, no, we know what our business is. Our business is people whose bookings are their business, people who are taking bookings every day, who have to manage their time with YouCanBookMe, who rely on it, who are digital entrepreneurs and small businesses and service-based businesses who are booking, having customers and consumers and clients book in for them. And that's where we need to be. And I think we just realized that the more we did that, the more we were heading towards, it's like you're going into the heart of the mountain. You can see, where all of the heat and the activity is, and that's where you want to be. That's where all the energy is. So we wanted to do that. That's what we have been doing for the last 2 years, the feature build and so on. So the rebrand was really a kind of a triumphant curtain open to the front page, where we are going to cycle pictures of our customers on our front page that we get to champion and talk about, and use cases. Okay. So we've got 5 people on the front page at the moment who are our real YouCanBookMe customers who've been using us for years, who are essentially form the part of our ICP. So I've got my t-shirt on, my ICP. You can say they're my ICP BFF. YouCanBookMe. In fact, I wrote about it in LinkedIn a couple of days ago. I talked about how we're just redefining. In jargon business terms, you talk about an ICP, but we're talking about BFFs. We're talking about people who we know we make friends with the best.
Oh, that is awesome, Bridget. I love the t-shirt. I think I've raised my hand already for the swag. And I love the way that you've done it so simple in the logo, because it's just like, green, I'm available. This is what it's about. You really are getting in touch with your customers. What are you getting in the way of feedback, and how are they responding? Because, it's great to be asked what you think, but then it's really something different if someone follows through and doesn't just give you a survey to fill out, for a chance to win an iPad or something.
Right. So just over a year ago, we did put out a survey, which was, I think, people who were logging into YouCanBookMe, it would pop up and say, do you want to fill out our survey? And we had about 500 responses.
That's not bad.
And of that survey, we have now built, I think, around 15 features that came from that survey. People said that they wanted these different things. We looked at it and we positioned all of our product development around what the survey told us. And then over the last summer, my colleague, particularly Kate, but myself as well, spent quite a lot of time talking to customers and interviewing them. And as you said, making ourselves available to people who wanted to book in. And that's been very instructive, because one of the things is it's just very validating, because you speak to people who all tell you the same thing. And so you look at the old mantra, the customer is always right. And it's like it's one of the most famous hackneyed business phrases in business. The customer is always right. But actually, the customer is always right. And what that really means is the customer can't be wrong. If a customer is telling you, I want this, you can't say, well, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. You can't argue with that. And your job is to see whether your product, whatever it is that you're offering, fits what job it is that they are saying they need to get done. So it's more of a jobs to be done framework than a kind of philosophical innovation discussion. And so from our jobs to be done perspective, every time we talk to customers and they tell us the same things, that they're all trying to do the same job, it's very validating for us to say, good, we're on the right path, where we know how to prioritize. And it's been so important for us as a product and engineering and design team, because then people who are not in every single strategic meeting can sit and say, well, we know where we're going with this. We know what jobs it is that people need to do, because we repeat it endlessly inside the company. So all the calls we have with customers translates into mantras that we use inside the company. So one mantra, for example, that I started to go on about a couple of years ago is Booker is king. We have millions of bookers essentially. So, and they don't pay anything. They don't pay us anything. It's our YouCanBookMe account holders who pay us. So you could say, well, we have thousands of customers. We should be looking to those customers and what they want. But for me, saying Booker is king is saying it's the booking experience for people that matters to our customers. So if you're sending out your links, Peggy, you want people to book you. You don't want them to have a bad experience. You want to make it as easy as possible. You want to give them a feeling that they enjoy using YouCanBookMe. Now that's what I mean by Booker is king. And so that's sort of flipping the switch slightly on what we are saying our priorities are, but for our design and engineering team, they understand that we are promoting the booking experience. We're promoting something which we think are the interests of our account holders. So there's a bigger picture there about talking to customers. It's about having empathy with them and understanding and being able to describe their jobs to be done framework. And you could have, I mean, we do have thousands of customers. So we have plenty of customers that don't fit in that same mold. And so the other mantra, and I got this from the CEO of Typeform, who I was very lucky to meet last year. Typeform is a very similar horizontal kind of tool to YouCanBookMe. And he said, the rest of the time, you just have to do no harm. So even if you're promoting your product for a certain type of customer, you just have to have a philosophy of do no harm to everybody else who wants to use it.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, because then you're keeping what you have and you're still expanding. And what I like about it is that it's simple, it's seamless. I can give the link to anyone and they will get it and they will understand it, and it's simple to book. I mean, that's really important. So to your point about the booker, that's what's important. What's one piece of customer feedback that has touched you and given you a new perspective that you hadn't thought of before?
Oh, that's a very good question. We've had tons of feedback. I don't have a specific example, but if I'm allowed to broaden it, I think that's what I would say. That for over many years, YouCanBookMe has powered small businesses to run their business, as you just said, a lot more efficiently and scalable than they could otherwise. And we hear that feedback regularly. People who say, I love this tool. I can't live without it. This is amazing. Thank you very much. And it might not even just be businesses. It could be administrators from schools who are using it to manage their parent-teacher conferences or something. And they're so grateful to us for using a tool that helps them do that job. And again, like in terms of our brand refresh and how we've repositioned the tool to face our small business customers more directly, square on, it's super motivating. I think that we had for a few years, we have a profile because we do have a lot of very large companies using us and big logos. It could be quite exciting to be in the B2B world. There was a tendency to go, oh, look, we've got, I don't know, Tesla using us. That's super exciting. And then everybody gets attracted like moths to a candle with the big logos. But genuinely inside my company, and I hand on heart, and I know everybody would agree with me, it's not small or big. It's like, actually, it's how close you are to somebody using your solution to making an impact. So it could be that a recruitment team in Uber is using us, but Uber is a multi-billion-pound company and they're using YouCanBookMe. They're probably using some of our competitors and other parts of the stack. We are a small droplet in the ocean that is Uber. But for you to be using YouCanBookMe, Peggy, every day to make it such an impact on your life, proportionally, I think it's more motivating. And we have thousands of people like you where we have that impact. So for us, we have, it's been like a waterfall, water going downhill for us to reposition YouCanBookMe to face a really, really motivating group of people, because we know you're working hard. You're working just as hard as we are. Everybody's working hard at the coalface to serve customers.
And speaking about motivation, I mean, there was a while there where it was getting kind of techie. It was like, I don't think this wants to be small business. I think it wants to be enterprise, and it's going to leave me here because I don't have massive teams. And you shifted back and you called it yourself. You mentioned it and called it a renaissance at YouCanBookMe because you were back to solopreneurs, small business, people who need this tool. But that motivated you internally, but what was it that motivated this pivot? Because you do something for a reason and bring it to your customers for a reason. So that was a shift. What was the motivation?
So it was a shift because, well, it's like any business, you evolve and you're trying to grow your business. You're trying to work out which routes, what paths to growing your business are you going to take. We ended up with a lot of internal product management that we needed to do because we were trying to respond to the COVID thing. So we brought in a lot of stuff specifically because of COVID. And when we came out the other end of that, I think that for me, the business focus had been lost a bit. And I think that the team were doing too much internal YouCanBookMe stuff. So we started to solve internal YouCanBookMe product development problems. And this is very common. This is not like a YouCanBookMe issue specifically. Inside software teams, you end up with a lot of technical debt. So we've been going for 12 years. Of course, we have parts of our system that are pretty old, or they need to be rewritten or whatever. And so what you end up with is product management saying, well, we can't do this until we do that. And we can't do that until we do this. And then the engineers are saying that really what we need to do is change platform or upgrade the system or move to a different way of doing something. And so you are always going down rabbit holes of what seems to be like a great new feature that ends up in something incredibly boring to do with shifting, the new API endpoints need to start looking at this and blah, blah. You end up as a culture of organization focused on your internal problems. So everybody's problem solving, everybody's working really hard, everybody's super motivated. It's just that it's lost its business focus and it started to deal with your internal issues of maintenance, essentially.
Yeah.
And so the shift for me was, if you've got an aspiration, let's say in our case, for a long time we were talking about team management on YouCanBookMe, and we do work very well for teams, and we have a lot of teams who use YouCanBookMe, and it's still all there. There's nothing kind of gone away about it. It's just that the product development and management that was required to fix the things that teams needed on YouCanBookMe was going to take years. Whereas we could see that people who are small businesses who just want to add notes to the bookings, or they just want to customize their offline booking message. Or they just want, as we talked about this morning, the background image. They just want a bit more personalization, customization. Yes. These things were within our means, and we could delight really quickly. So it was, in a way, it was a business decision to go, look, we can come back to some of the larger scale modeling that's required for really big scale scheduling and enterprise scheduling. But right now we have thousands of people who just want to use one calendar, one booking page, make it as good as it can be, create all of the automation in there and make it easy to use, so that we can get more of those people. So it was a pragmatic business decision to say, let's head towards the people that we know are most successful using our tool.
And of course, Bridget, to be fair, the future belongs to the free agents. We're going to see a lot of change and shifts in large companies. I believe in small, nimble teams and solopreneurs and people that keep everything moving. The industry I'm in, a lot of people who were in marketing, those marketing departments have been cut. So they're out there now doing consulting, and I'm telling them all to go to you. But aside from that, you've evolved, you've grown, so is your business, but you've managed to also grow and stay true to your roots. You have things like book a time with me. I want to hear your feedback. These are not what you would expect sometimes, because the growth usually means the opposite. It's so hard to stay real and grow. So how has that happened, and how have your own personal values perhaps guided these decisions to be big, but still act with empathy, perhaps?
Okay, so there's a number of things there. So the first is my personal values and how we grow. And I know you've got questions for me about bootstrapping YouCanBookMe, and I think that's related. So, but I believe, just in a purely technical point around selling a service to a customer, is that you enter into a contract. They give you the money. If you walk into a shop and you pick something off the shelf and you hand over some money for it, it's a contract. Everything about a commercial relationship is a contract. And I believe very strongly, no matter how many thousands of customers we have, everybody that's giving us money it's a promise in return for something that we're offering them. And I think that's a really strong relationship that we have with our customers, because we're bootstrapped. And I would say that by comparison, there's lots of companies, startups and B2B SaaS tools that are not profitable, that have probably a very similar revenue to us. So we're $5 million ARR, so that you could have a company with $5 million ARR, but they will have 30 million pounds in VC. They'll be burning £1 million a month. They'll have 120 people working for them. And so they're by definition not close to their customers, because they're so big in proportion to the size of their customers. So, and their customers, really, they're investors. So you end up orientating your company towards investors, because those are the people who are paying. So really, money is a perfect currency here. That is, whoever is giving you the money, you look to. So with YouCanBookMe, customers give us the money. So of course, we're going to continue to talk to them. The second thing I would say is for YouCanBookMe, we are PLG, we're product-led growth company. So we don't spend a lot of money on sales and marketing. We rely on people using the product and sharing the product and experiencing the product in a self-service way to decide whether they want to pay us or not. It's not happening because of a sales cycle that we run. And that means that we're very close to our product because our product is the thing that is producing the customers, if that makes sense. And then the last thing that I would say, and there's no reason why any company couldn't do this, is that we promote our customers inside our company. So every week we have a meeting where we have a customer story presented by our director of customers, Jamie. She always tells a story about one of the people that are using the tool. We promote the stories around the company in terms of what's worked, sometimes what obviously hasn't worked. There's a kind of advocacy around customers that is very normal and common inside our company. So engineers are very, very familiar with some of the customers that we've been dealing with recently, or they might jump onto a call to talk to a customer to find out why something's gone wrong for them and just basically troubleshoot it directly. We celebrate customers and what we can see out there. So we invest in internal comms around customers to keep that customer relationship going.
That is a fascinating playbook, and certainly written the book, I think, on customer advocacy. Now that I understand that I just thought, oh, it's really cool and I'm a customer, but no, it's also that your customers are your advocates, and you've harnessed that. And lucky for us, you've also written about your journey in bootstrapping as well. You have a bootstrapping manual, which I think is awesome. Thank you for giving back. But what inspired you to write it in the first place, and why are you sharing it with us?
So I do quite a lot of public speaking, and I just realized a few years ago that conference organizers really wanted to hear me talk about bootstrapping.
Okay.
Because I think that we just woke up after the pandemic realizing that money isn't free forever. Yep. There's companies who really want to learn how to run businesses rather than just learn how to raise funding. And so I was being asked to speak about it. And I do a lot of, advice outside of when I do conference talks. So there's just a lot of topics in that bootstrapping manual that I've spent quite a bit of time coaching and talking to people about. So the main reason was like, let's just stick it all in a book and then everybody can read it. I think that what I really am good at is strategic decision making. And so I wrote the book because I wanted to help people understand how to think about their problems, because I can't tell them specifically how to run a mobile app with a gaming, a new game or something else where there is something which is sector specific to do with the software or the technology. I couldn't help them. But what I can help people do is help them think through their priorities as business owners and as entrepreneurs. And by that, I needed to write the bootstrapping manual so that people so they're not going to get playbooks around MQLs. What they're going to get is an explanation of how I've made decisions, how we have thought about things, what our opinion is on risk versus reward, it's how you can rationalize decision making, because your job as an entrepreneur is to make more good decisions than bad, basically, because we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to make bad decisions. So the successful entrepreneurs are successful because they made the least number of bad decisions. They had a net positive gain of good decisions. So you have to invest in your ability to make good decisions.
I like that. It's fewer bad decisions that, that things happen, Things happen, shift happens. I won't say the other word, but things happen, and there are going to be some good decisions and some bad decisions, and you have to make more of one than the other. We have your manual, and I'll have that in the show notes because I do think that that's important to read that. But drawing from that and talking to this audience, they want to understand more about how to tune in, how to keep connected with their customers as they grow. So let's give them a few ideas of the strategies that you can recommend to, I hate to say it, delight your customer. We've heard that one before, but hey, it is the rule. It is what works. As you said yourself, customer is always right, or the booker is king. So share some of those so that they can also stay as closely connected with their customers as they grow as you have with yours.
we've got various strategies, things that we'd also aspire to do. So I can kind of give you my advice as well from what we are planning. When I've been speaking to business owners as part of the You Can Book Me customer showcase, quite a lot of them are building communities. And I think that's probably the watchword. So you need to have some kind of place where people who are like-minded, who are all using your service or are interested in the same topic, can come together and network together. So that could be a Facebook group. That's what Lindsay does in terms of her fitness and health and well-being business. So she has a free Facebook group. So people are attracted in. She advertises for people to go into that Facebook group. So they're not yet customers, but what they are is a community that's interested in the topic, which then, of course, some of them subsequently become customers. And she's a You Can Book Me account holder, so she uses You Can Book Me to book them in. So I think that general watchword of community and how are you going to bring your customers together who've got something in common is really valuable. We do have a forum. We have a You Can Book Me forum for free users, but it's used much more as a platform for support tickets rather than community, rather than sharing. I think that what we've been doing this year has been really insightful for us. It's been a learning curve for us, which is inviting customers to talk to us about the way they use the tool, inviting them to talk to us about the businesses that they run, and then finding ways of then sharing that content in a meaningful way, relevant way to other people. So, for example, on YouTube, you can now see a lot of the interviews we've done with our customers, and they're taking on a life of their own. So one of them's got 1,500 views because it's like small business, small shorts around business advice. So I think if you invest in your relationship with your customers, depending on whatever business you've got, you're going to get some kind of value out of that by definition, unless you're selling people, hot air. If you've actually got a substantive product or service you're selling your customers, they're getting value from you. Really, the only question you're asking is how can you go back into that value that they get and tap into it and start promoting that value? Because as you've said many times, and it's lovely to hear every time you talk about the fact that you use You Can Book Me to help solve your problems, that's value for us. We can say, look at Peggy, look what she's doing. There's a value in the tool, because it feeds back into kind of the old content copy marketing style, which is you focus on value, not on features or function. You talk about what is the outcome for people. And so connecting to your customers is just an extension of that. It's just saying, talk to us about the value that you get so that we can use it as a way of, as I said, we have an internal value we get an internal benefit because we learn what is it, like just my call with you this morning, Peggy, you'll see in a few, probably, I don't know, we'll probably get it out next week, a page on You Can Book Me with all of the templates and galleries of all of the different kinds of You Can Book Me pages you could design. Because I've heard you say it, I understand it, my colleagues understand it, we can build it just to help you. So, you've got that internal benefit, but then the external benefit is being able to associate that value that you offer to somebody so that somebody else comes along and goes, I want that.
What I also really find intriguing in your approach is many companies say, oh yeah, we're going to do, community driven or community led marketing. But then you've got someone saying, okay, so how many clicks did we get? How many views did we get? Is this paying off? And I didn't hear that once, which I think is really key here, is that the customer connection is not something that on the other end necessarily there's a massive metric attached to it. So you're not going to stop your customer interviews if, say, for example, they don't all get 1,000 views, right? No, I think that's really, really key here, because a lot of people think that matters. That's not the point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. What I'm excited about is that if we can invest in some marketing content that goes on YouTube and it takes on a life of its own, it's not necessarily promoting You Can Book Me anymore, because the content of that short will be that person talking about their business. It might help promote them, which I find motivating. You can use those numbers to say, is there an audience? Is there an audience for this? If you can build up an audience, and I think everybody's talking about this now with influencer marketing, that your ability to build up an audience for whatever content you want to share with them is like your distribution channel. It's the most important foundational point. Once you've got an audience, how you choose to, whatever messages you send out, is an extension of it. I mean, I wouldn't expect all 1,000 people watching one of our YouTube shorts to go, oh, right, well, we have to go to YouCanBookMe then set up a scheduling tool. It is a bit more of a holistic thing. You are investing in a bigger idea, a bigger brand, a bigger feeling that you're creating with that community. But I also really like the idea that we're just helping the people we've interviewed. Like if we're giving them a bit of additional promotion, that's enough for me.
And also so much research out there saying, this is the nano micro influencer time. People are not excited about celebrities and influencer marketing any longer, because once everyone does it, then what do you do to be different? And now it's really about being genuine and authentic. And we're going to see that more and more. So you've latched onto that trend long ahead of a number of others, Bridget, because what matters is being real. And that brings me to another aspect of this, because we've been talking about the company, and then the company and the CEO, they're intertwined. It's almost like, in that Star Trek movie that I love so much, Spock and the planet, they are one, and they age together and they evolve together. And maybe not a Trekkie, so you're not going to appreciate that example, but it's true. They're one and the same. They're so closely intertwined. So what do you draw on yourself to be a better leader, a better version of yourself, a better Bridget for company?
I'm definitely a better Bridget than I was 10 years ago. Definitely. I think that just comes with maturity anyway.
Yes.
So I like getting older. I was 50 this year, Peggy. So I feel a lot wiser now immediately.
Empowered. I like that. I like
exactly. I like that. So generally speaking, I think it's a good, sort of symbol of maturity as you get older, that you're learning and you're getting better. I think that to be a better leader, the ways I've always done it is by investing in my own learning through reading books and accountability. So put it a different way, when I make mistakes or things go wrong, I hold myself accountable for that. And then I read books and I try to learn and speak to people to be better. And then I talk about that with my team. So, we've gone through various different hard times that YouCanBookMe, just like every company. And every time I want to see, well, what could I have done differently, or how I could have changed, or how will I make things better? And I think that by extension, that makes me a better leader, because I'm just trying to stay as accountable to myself and learning as I can, rather than assume because I'm the boss, I get to say everything and know everything and I'm the best at everything. I think that's a road to ruin if you allow your ego to take over.
That is true. I've heard that very often. And you reflect a lot. I hear that. You reflect on what you've done, talk with your team. It's not a blame game with you. I think that's really important, is that it's not, as they like to call it so much in the States, people do a post-mortem. Just the thought of it sounds horrible. It's like, no, we're just looking back at what we just did. It doesn't have to be the post-mortem like it was deadly and dire. And here we are.
Retrospective is probably
retrospective is nicer. Post-mortem is a little creepy, and you think it must be full of problems. We must have done something wrong. So I'd like to close with a couple of quick questions where we want to learn from you, but we also want to hear Bridget come through. So a little rapid fire round. You talked about reading. You get a lot from reading, get a lot from life examples. What's one book you think every entrepreneur should read, aside from your manual? Because I do agree that's a must, but what other book that they should read?
I think one of the books, there's a lot of books. That's very hard, because I like reading lots of business books. There's lots I could recommend. One of the books that I read quite a few years ago now was Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet. And it's a classic management leadership book. It's not that long. It's got lots of good stories and you learn a lot from it, and it's really helpful. There's lots of things about it that I like. But I think the one reason why I like it a lot is because this guy, David Marquet, he was a captain in a US Navy submarine, nuclear submarine in the US Navy.
Okay.
And so all of his lessons, I don't know if you've read it, but all of his lessons are about how he was able to transform management and leadership inside this nuclear sub. Oh. And I like it because I always just think, well, we're running an online scheduling service here. We're not a nuclear submarine. Like, if the guy can do it in a nuclear submarine, then I'm sure we can do it in our software company. And I think it's a nice sense of proportion. Because sometimes, you read a business book and you're like, oh, well, that's never us. Or, they don't really understand our special situation. We're super complex. Well, no, a nuclear submarine is the most complex organizational group you're probably ever going to get. And his lessons about business and management and leadership are really, really valuable. So I would recommend they read that.
Interesting. I'm intrigued. I hadn't heard of it, but now I'm like, yeah, because that makes sense. It's a microcosm of business, and what works in there works out here, but it has to work in there. Otherwise, literally sinking the ship or the sub. We know what YouCanBookMe can do to productivity, but share one other productivity hack that has genuinely transformed how you work.
Probably quite a negative one. I now use a website news blocker because I'm very bad. I'm sorry. I loved your what's it called?
Timular.
I love that. I'm going to get one of those. I need a timular because I get super distracted. And I'm constantly, the news is obviously very distracting all the time.
Yeah.
And I just had to switch off. It's free. I'm not even spending any money on it, but I get to block 2 websites. So I block a newspaper website and a BBC News, just so that I stop myself from constantly checking BBC News website. Because I news, 24-hour news is it can become that same dopamine hit. Like, I'll just check the news in case something else is kicked off. So I had to stop myself from checking news. So there's like Block Site, I think it's called. I'm sure there's plenty of them there. I think the other thing I would recommend to anybody in terms of productivity is you have to fight back against all of the notification dopamine stuff. So in terms of all of my apps, I have all of my notifications switched off. I do not let apps ping me. Sometimes it will work, like personal calls on WhatsApp
or airport,
but for work, I don't let that kind of notification hungry app distract me every 3 minutes. I can't stand it. I like silence when I'm working.
That's a very good point. In fact, I've got an idea now to do something very similar, because that is very true. They are getting needy because of, they need the interaction, they need the data. It's a different world now. So the more you interact, so they think the more you interact, the more engaging, the better it is. But actually, we're proving it can be the opposite. There is a limit. So I think there's a limit.
You wouldn't have somebody knocking on your door every 3 minutes.
True.
Like you're sitting in the sitting room trying to read the paper, and you have to get up every 2 minutes to answer the door because somebody's knocked on it just to say hi. I just wanted to say hi.
Yeah.
You would get very annoyed very quickly. And yet that's what we allow into our lives. And I don't have email notifications. I don't have WhatsApp or LinkedIn. Nothing makes a sound on my phone. I just don't like it.
That's very brave. That I'm going to follow on that, because I have noticed, and it's buzz, buzz, buzz. And you're not looking, but you hear the buzz, and it's Pavlovian. It's like, I wonder what it is. I wonder if it was something important. No, just don't hear the buzz, period. Life will be better because of that. Final question. It's been a journey. It continues to be a journey. It's exciting, but there are moments that you have that feel like failure at the time. But then you learn an invaluable lesson, or it turns out to be exactly the right thing. Things happen almost for a reason, even when it seems to be dire at that moment. What's an example you can offer?
The only time I ever feel failure, that sounds awful. Like, I do feel a failure quite a bit, but when I feel like I've let people down, I think is when people who work for us decide to leave because they don't see that, some people leave the company because they've got a great opportunity, or they're moving on and it's completely fine. And it's all really, usually it's always a good story. It's a good thing for people to move on into something better. But I think when people leave because they end up feeling a bit hopeless, like they don't feel like they could do the job that they want to do inside YouCanBookMe, that's always a very painful thing. Because then you think, oh, well, what could I have done differently? Did I let them down? How could I have, you want people to work for you. You want them to thrive. You want them to do their best work. You want them to feel like, their time at YouCanBookMe was the best time that they could have had. And I think that if I'm feeling like a failure, it's usually because I think that I've let people down and I could have done something different to make their experience better. And, but you always have to learn from it, Peggy. You always have to, you sit there and go, okay, so those roles or that department or that strategy that we had or that work that we were asking them to do, or you think, right, who am I going to hire? You always reinvest that information back into hiring so that you attract people back in who you do think are going to thrive. So I always take it quite personally when I feel like I've let people down and they don't want to work for me anymore. You know, by definition, it is always quite personal. And I think, well, what could I have done differently to have allowed that person to thrive? I mean, as I said, 9 times out of 10, usually somebody's moving on for very, very good reasons.
Yeah.
But there's occasionally people leave and I just think, that was, you know, that's a shame. How could I have prevented it? And that's, you know, that was, so 12, 13 years we've been hiring and employing people. Again, I put it in my bootstrapping manual. People are, you know, they're the triumph and the tragedy of running a business because, you know, they're a tragedy when it goes wrong. People problems are rife. It's one of those issues you have to invest in HR, policies and procedures and so on when you're hiring. But they're also a triumph because working with the best people, you have the best team. You have the best day, you enjoy your work the best, you know, working with the best people it's like the dopamine hit of running a business is working with the best people. So, you know, it's high stakes when you get it wrong.
Absolutely. And it is about the people. I've noticed that even in my small team, someone who's very, very central, they move on. It's like, oh no, the knowledge they took with them and the fun as well. It has been delightful, Bridget. I said at the start, bold conversations with bright minds. You have nailed it on both counts. I'm positive people will want to get a hold of you, find out more, check out the manual, and just keep up to date on what you're doing. What's the best way? Is it LinkedIn or what's the best way?
Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my only kind of social app that I am actually active on. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. My DMs are open.
And that's how we got together, actually, Bridget. We got together on LinkedIn. So yes, it absolutely does work. And it absolutely has been a delight. Thanks again so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
And of course, if you're tuning into In the Groove on YouTube, well, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It will allow you to stay up to date with the series. And not only that, enjoy the pure gold of knowledge and insights our guests bring to every episode.